This McCoy drove up 75, and you know what that can lots of times. So anyway, we're going to reverse the order that we were going to present. So we're having a little technology difficulty. So Colonel Christensen is going to go first, and then Ms. McCoy will come afterwards. Anyway, thank you very much for coming tonight. Really excited. I know how hard it is to get back out and either gone home or gone to sleep in your office or whatever. Just a couple of announcements. BSU ambassadors will be here. If any of you are here for extra credit and need your card swipe, they'll be here close to the end of the presentation. If for any reason anybody needs a counselor, we have BSU counselors here for your, if you need one. There'll be time for questions at the end, and also this is being filmed, so for anybody who would like to, it'll be on our website, the Women's and Gender Studies website, under events. So it should be available hopefully by Monday. So if you want, there's something you want to access, it should be available. Dr. John Dunn will introduce the Colonel. I'll go ahead and introduce Ms. McCoy so there can be hopefully a seamless transition. And then Dr. Dunn will introduce Colonel Christensen, and then we'll hopefully get started. Ms. BriGette McCoy is a Persian Gulf War service-connected disabled veteran who held top security clearance during her military career. As a military veteran advisor, she serves on national, local, governmental, and nonprofit organizations that advocate on behalf of the veteran community. She's a nonprofit leader, a community builder, an advocate, activist, and mentor for veteran women sexual assault survivors, as well as for disabled workers. In 2008, Ms. McCoy founded Women Veterans Social Justice Network, a community-based nonprofit organization that brings together national and local veteran resources for women veterans to help with their transition to civilian life. Through partnerships with universities, such as Kennesaw State, WVSJ, her nonprofit, offers women's training and education conferences. Through the organization, Ms. McCoy lobbies for improved VA services for women's veterans. She finds services for homeless veterans, and she uses art as a therapeutic tool for women diagnosed with PTSD and military sexual trauma. Ms. McCoy has testified before the Senate, appeared on The Daily Show, MSNBC, The Today Show, and NPR News, among others. She's been featured in articles in The Times, The Guardian, Creative Loathing, and HuffPost, and has been co-host on community-based radio and TV talk shows. She was consulted for and appeared in the award-winning documentary, Service, When Women Come Marching Home, released in 2011. And she currently hosts 2 podcasts on Heroes Media Group. Ms. McCoy serves as the Vice Chair of the City of Atlanta's Veterans Affairs Commission and is a board member of DeKalb County's Veterans Advisory Board. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, has completed master's coursework in counseling, religious studies, and education. She's currently a graduate research assistant studying instructional design technologies at Georgia State University. She continues to use her personal story to advocate for women victims of military sexual trauma. So we'll hear from her in a few minutes.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to introduce Don Christensen. He's a retired colonel in the United States Air Force. Comes from a military family with roots back to the Civil War. JAG officer. He was chief prosecutor for the Air Force from 2012 to 2014. And I think no matter what your politics are, whether you're far right of center, far left of center, in the middle, you're going to find what he's talking about. He's talking about justice, trying to make this system more fair for people who have become victims. And I think he has a very interesting story to tell us. I'm going to sit down now and let the Colonel speak to you.
thank you very much to Valdosta University for having me here. It's a great honor to be speaking with this group. Just about, how many of you are anybody veterans besides you? So, small number of veterans. Anybody who's father, mother, a few more. Okay. Spouse. Okay. I think what it shows is that we have ties to the service, but very few of us have actually served. The lowest point probably in the last 7 years, people have actually served. So this topic is, for a lot of people, something they're not aware of. And I really like talking to audiences, civilians, the local communities, so that they can really get a grasp of what's going on. Okay, so you know this. So, yeah. Okay. So, military sexual assault, and has been increasingly covered in the media. It's part of often television and the movies now. There was a couple episodes of House of Cards that dealt with military sexual assault, and there's a lot of legislation dealing with military sexual assault, so it's starting to get some recognition. Yeah. Okay. So I sorry about that. Is anybody gets me?
Yes.
Okay. So it's starting to get more recognition. So the numbers, every other year, the Department of Defense does a survey of the active duty force, and I want to stress, this is the only active duty force. Doesn't include Guard, doesn't include reserves, doesn't include the civilians that might be impacted by sexual assault. So the most recent numbers are from 2016. There's another survey that will be coming out any day now. We'll have the 2018 numbers. And so in 2016, there were 14,900 active duty men and women studying sexual assault. For the first time since the surveys were done, there were more women victims than men victims, which is interesting. 85% of the military, of course, is male. 15% is female, so not too much of a surprise. 1 in 4 women, 1 in 3 men were assaulted by someone within the chain of command. Now, that does not mean the commander assaulted them, but somebody superior to them who had authority over them. So it definitely impacts leadership. 81% of the victims chose not to report the crimes. So that is the estimate. Then there's another number that comes out every year, and that's actual reports of sexual assault. The reports of sexual assault in the military are done in 2 ways. We have what we call restricted and unrestricted. A restricted report is unique to the military, and it is a result of the fact that the military, can you hear me?
You're fine.
Okay. It's the fact that the military, when someone reports sexual assault, there is no medical privilege. And so somebody would go to the hospital, they just want to get treated. They don't want the investigation to be going on, they don't want to deal with it, they just want the medical treatment. So they would go to the hospital, medical treatment, yet doctors would inform the command, and an investigation would start. So about 2004, 2005, Congress said, we're going to have an ability to make a report to certain organizations which you control whether or not anybody else knows about it. So you can go to the doctor, you can go to mental health, you can go to victim advocate, and we'll start an investigation. Then there's unrestricted reports, which is very other. No matter who you told, that can become an investigation. Right. So, thank you so much. So when you look at the numbers, there were 5,110 unrestricted reports for fiscal year 2017. of those, 905 were made by the civilians. And so remember I talked about we had this estimate of 15,000. Doesn't count civilians. And so we know from reports that there's probably a lot of civilians in that sexual assault military members as well who aren't counted for that estimate. It also does not include spouses, intimate partners, or children, or victims of domestic abuse. So we don't know, of this 5,110, how many more actual sexual assaults there are who were victims of partner sex abuse, parental child sex abuse, something like that. It's odd that the DOD doesn't report these numbers. It undercounts number of sexual assaults. Sexual harassment is rampant. 129,000 service members in 2017 said they were sexually harassed. When we talk about sexual harassment in the military, this is not a one-off comment. Under the survey, they make it very clear this is severe, persistent sexual harassment. So 1 in 4 women in 1 year sexually harassed. Again, the majority of victims are harassed by someone in the chain of command. Excellent. Okay, retaliation. Retaliation is a huge problem. 58% of men are women, and 60% of men who reported a sexual assault were retaliated against. 77% of that retaliation came from someone at the chain of command, somebody superior to them. And this is, I think, very striking. This is a DOD IG investigation that found that 1 in 3 women who report sexual assault were discharged out of the military within a year of reporting, typically within 7 months. So it has become a career-ending. Way too many women who report sexual assault in the military from retaliation and other aspects of it. When we talk about retaliation, the DOD likes to downplay that. And what they say is, oh, no, this is being befriended on Facebook. It's social retaliation. First, very offensive. Second, this kind of social retaliation is led to suicides, being called a slut and whatever else on social media, saying you should have been raped, you deserve to be raped. That has a huge impact on the survivor. The second is this retaliation is broken into 3 groups: peer and social retaliation, professional retaliation, and punitive retaliation. And each one of those is about the same percentage of retaliation. 24% of the women who were forced out of the military were discharged with less than a fully honorable discharge. What this means is they lose many of their military benefits, like the GI. Also impacts their employability. All right, so in 2018, the Rand Corporation came out with a deep dive analysis of the 2014 survey. And what they found, there were 8 installations in the military that had over 500 sexual assaults in 2014, just at that installation. Fort Hood, Texas, had almost 1,000. They also found, and this is one that the military again downplays, there's a strong correlation between sexual harassment and sexual assault. The military acts like that's not true, much to the detriment and to the detriment of the men in the service. The highest rate of sexual assaults occurred on ships and on installations with high combat unit presence. There were some areas where there was a 17% prevalence rate for women for sexual assault. What that means, to be clear, is on some of these ships and some of these installations, 17% of the women are sexually assaulted in one year. And so if you put that out over a 4-year career, you can see how astronomically bad that is. Army had 5 installations with a prevalence rate of 7.5%. Okay, so my organization, Protected Defenders, we fight for lots of reforms. And one of the biggest problems we see is that the military has a very unique justice system. It's a command and correcting the justice system. This is pretty much the way criminal investigation, prosecution works in this way. You get a report, it's investigated, goes to the U.S. attorney or local district attorney. They can dismiss the case, they can take it to grand jury can say, yes, go forward, maybe go to trial, go to trial. Pretty linear, pretty understandable. This is the military's way. Yeah, it's really bad. All right, so all of this stuff in here, all these arrows going back and forth, are the various levels of command that have say about the prosecution. And because commanders are not attorneys and are not prosecutors, under the law, because of abuses that occurred in the past, they have all these layers of oversight, some by attorneys. Now, these attorneys that give them oversight actually work for the commander. So you have a 3-star general getting advice from the colonel or lieutenant colonel who works for him. So the advice is not independent. Additionally, the advice is not from somebody who specializes in prosecutions, and they cannot serve as a prosecutor themselves. In fact, the person making the prosecution decision, the senior commanders, cannot act as a prosecutor even though they're making a prosecution decision. If they act as a prosecutor, they are no longer unbiased and the case will be thrown out. So if you saw a couple years ago, I think it's a year ago now, we had 2 Navy ships that ran into other ships, McCain, Captain Dillon, and 17 sailors were killed through negligence. Because of the people at the very top of this saying certain things that indicated they were no longer acting neutral as a Canadian authority is supposed to, those cases were just thrown out today. And so 17 people died, and no one's going to go because of this mess. When I was the chief prosecutor, I was over here in this little green box, and I had no direct access to the people making decisions. So it's a mess. That's it. Okay. So, is it a successful mess? It can still be a mess and be greatly successful. Well, when we talk about sexual assault prosecution, so in 2013, there were 3,768 unrestricted reports. Now there was 5,110. 484 went to trial. So not that many, mostly. And 197 people were convicted. So that's pretty small. Excellent. 2014, reports have gone up dramatically. Prosecutions went up a little. So we had a dramatic increase of over 1,000, giving us a grand total of 71 convictions. Next one. 2015, slight downturn, 2 more convictions. 2016, again, steady state, but we see prosecutions going down, 124 convictions. And to give you an idea, in 2016, again, that was 15,000 at least sexual assaults, resulting in 166 convictions. 2017, prosecutions barely up, actually as a percentage down, and convictions barely up. Next slide. So if you look and you start at the top, and you see that we had 5,100 reports, we get down to 3.2% of reports. Yes. If you look at the estimates, and if you count in civilians, you're probably looking at least 20 to 25,000 victims of sexual assault by military member, resulting in 166 convictions. As you can see, the prosecution rate is dropping. Now, why is this important? So as I said, there's starting to be more interest on this. Congress has held hearings now since 2013 on a specific case, or a specific problem with prosecuting and getting convictions and command and control. They have spent millions of dollars, and given the DOD millions of dollars to address this issue. The DOD has made hundreds of promises that they're going to be better at it, and the commanders are the solution to the problem, and we need to trust commanders. And yet, all this time, all this effort, all this attention, it's getting worse. Okay, so recently, folks, like I said, we have talked about that Congress has been paying attention. When I say Congress has been paying attention, so for those of you who are older, most of you aren't. In 1991, there was this thing called tailhook. Anybody remember tailhook? All right, remember tailhook. All right, so tailhook is an association of naval aviators. The tailhook refers to the resting hook on the back of a plane that lands on a carrier. If you made a carrier landing, it catches the cable and keeps you going out in front of the carrier. If you made that one of those landings, you can remember the tailhook. The tailhook would hold a convention every year in Las Vegas. In 1991, they had this convention in which over 80 men and women were sexually assaulted at the convention by the attendees of the tailhook. Any idea how many were prosecuted? Zero. Yeah, not a single person was prosecuted, no one was fired, nothing happened. Eventually, the Secretary of Navy had to step down because he said some really tough things. No accountability. So Congress got really upset. He said, oh my God, how can we have this 80 of our men and women sexually assaulted by their fellow aviators and no one's held accountable? All right? But interest waned, nothing happened. And then in 1997, they had this scandal at Aberdeen Proving Ground, where the sergeants in charge of instructing enlistees were using them as sexual things. Dozens of victims. Another, oh my God, we got to use them. Well, in 97, just as they had said in 91, all the leadership said, oh, we have zero tolerance for sexual assault. This is going to stop, right? Fast forward to 2003. Air Force Academy had over 300 women report sexual assault. How many do you think were prosecuted? You were right before zero. Zero. All right, so now this is getting more attention. Leadership comes out, oh, that's bad. We have zero tolerance. We're going to solve this. Trust the chain of command. Commanders in the solution. We're going to solve this. Right? So, fast forward to 2011. The Invisible War, which everybody has seen, comes up. And it just brings to life these incredibly horrific stories of men and women sexually assaulted. And then they're the ones punished. They're the ones careers in. No one is held accountable. And what happens? What do you think the DOJ is? We have zero tolerance, right? Nothing. This isn't going to happen. So in 2013, I had prosecuted, actually in 2012, November 2012, I prosecuted this very popular fighter pilot in Odum, Air Base Italy. And this fighter pilot had sexually assaulted a woman, named Kim Hanks, great woman, who was a guest at her. And he had snuck down into the guest bedroom while she was sleeping and started sexually assaulting her. She reports, goes to trial. Everybody loves the guy. He was a base inspector general. He was a colonel select. No one thought we'd get a win. We convict the guy, as he should have been. And actually, it was one of the easier convictions I ever had. Got the conviction. And 4 months later, the general that had the authority to send him to trial also at that time had the authority to free him. And because he was, quote, a good family man and a colonel select, it was incongruent to this general that he would commit sexual assault. And he said, you're free. Overturn the conviction. Well, that caused another media storm, another bunch of stuff where Congress got involved. Well, what did the chain of command say? Zero tolerance. Zero tolerance. And when they were asked, do commanders need the ability to overturn rape convictions? Their answer was yes. quote, we have been winning wars since 1775 because commanders had this authority. Now, I don't know a single person who had a rape conviction that returned who then won a war for us, but that was their excuse. Right? So, we've been able to push through reforms. I'm sorry, I missed this game. At the same time, Blackman Air Force Base had another scandal where trainers, drill instructors, were using the new enlistees as their dating pool and often non-consensual. And again, like something like 40 of these drill instructors on investigation actually got some people convicted, and most of the convictions have been overthrown because a lot of the command problems we have. Very few of these people are now sentenced. All right, so Article 32. Article 32 is the Air Force, and military officers say this is the equivalent to a grand jury. It's not anything like a grand jury. But the only equivalency is that a grand jury is a necessary step to have someone to a felony court. Article 32 is a necessary step to take someone to the general court right, so that's pre-trial. Right. So there was this case going on at the Naval Academy, a young woman who said she was raped by 3 football players. And Article 32 had all the rules of a knife fight. It was abusive. This woman was subjected to 30 hours of cross-examination and asked questions such as, how wide do you usually open your mouth during oral sex? What kind of underwear were you wearing? And my favorite, did you feel like, quote, being home the next morning? Very abusive cross-examination. This occurred in front of me, and they got out. And Congress said, okay, this is good stuff. And so now, the Article 32 process is reform. Victims no longer have to testify, which is kind of equivalent to a grand jury. Victims can, but don't have to testify usually, and they're not subject to cross-examination. So victims no longer have to testify, and there's a lot more strengthening of the rules of privilege that would keep somebody if they decide to testify and being subjected to that. Deposition. So we said victims no longer have to testify. So what did the defense do? I'm not critical of the defense as a defense counsel. They have a job to do. And they think, well, in the past we could put the victim under this purely cross-examination, but now we can't. So what are we going to do? So they use the depositions to be a subterfuge. And the deposition, for those who don't know, is designed in a criminal case to preserve testimony for somebody who may not or will not be available for trial. Okay? But that fits all purpose. In the civil world, it can be used as a discovery tool. It's not its purpose as criminal. And so prior to this, the law is very poorly written. And basically, the judge had to grant a deposition if it was requested. So we got the law changed because after this 16-year-old girl who was sexually assaulted said after the 32 hearing, the other law change said, hey, I've been here for 3 hours, but I have to be here any longer because she's a civilian, she didn't have to be, she left. And then they forced a deposition on her, even though she didn't testify. So it was being abused, we got that law changed. Mental health records. So I would say mental health records for a survivor are one of the most precious things that they have. Most has the greatest, in their mind, fear of abuse. They don't want people seeing it. They're having very private communications with their therapist. We have a mental health privilege in the military, but it was written in such a way that, unlike almost every civilian jurisdiction, where it's an absolute privilege, in the military is a speed bump to the accused records. And so mental health records were routinely turned over to a victim, which was devastating, to the accused, which was devastating. So we got that changed. It's not perfect, but it's better. But military character. So forever, the military had this rule that a person charged with any offense could put on good military character to be acquitted. And so that would be the equivalent of good professor character, or good firefighter professor, good security force professor, whatever, character. And so they could bring in people. It was typically their commander, the people that were in charge of the prosecution, and say, I've worked with Specialist Jones for 4 years, so he was in combat. I formed an opinion about his character. He has outstanding military character, best of the group. And then the judge would have to give instruction to the jury, we call court members, and say, you've heard that Specialist Jones has good military character. On that basis alone, you can find him guilty. And so it was very bizarre. What it really did was allow commanders who didn't want to case to go to trial, but somebody who said to go to trial, kind of change the process by telling the jury basically unspoken words, hey, I'm a commander, you're a commander, I'm telling you this guy couldn't use those words. So we got rid of that. Victims' appellate rights. The military is actually further ahead now with some rights of victims. And one of the things we're able to push through now, a victim can appeal the judge's decision at trial, for example, and the judge turns over her mental health records. So that's a good one. Special Victims Counsel, Victims Legal Counsel. This was created in 2011 by Congressman Songas, but the military drug their feet and didn't want to do it. What it was the legislation required that a military member who was a victim of sexual assault had to be given a free attorney, a JAG, who would advise him. This is a real game changer because up to that, they had nobody advising. As a prosecutor, I ethically cannot advise the victim of their rights. The interests of the government, the interests of the victim can often help. And but people who don't know what they're doing, those commanders and JAGs don't know what they're doing, think that the prosecutor is their attorney. Cannot be. So this was given out somebody could give free advice, or give the good advice, unconflicted advice. Again, perfect example of that. When I was a prosecutor, if I interviewed a victim, and I say, hey, the defense wants, has requested to talk to you. And she says, should I talk to them? I can't say. Now inside I'm screaming, oh hell no, do not talk to them. That's the last thing you want to do, but I can't. Now they have counsel to say, no. Right to consult with the decision authority, all those people that I showed you before, now you have a right to say, I want this to go to trial. The decision authority doesn't have to listen, and they ought to know. Eliminate no punishment as an option. Our sentencing system in the military is archaic. George Washington would recognize it. It is really bad. It has basically its own changes since 1775, including the sentencing options, other than getting rid of like rations, rations. But other than that, it's basically the same. You can go to jail from no jail to where the maximum is. You can receive a punitive discharge or not. You can get reduced in rank if you're listed or not. You can lose money or not. Restricted base or not. There's absolutely no guidance on one of the options they have on all crimes except for murder and spying was the option to punish, sentence somebody to no punishment. So if you have somebody convicted of raping a child, the jury would be told, who's doing the sentencing, which is also, the jury was told, you can sentence him to no punishment. Now, it's not like we thought that the jury was going to sentence a child rapist to no punishment, but it sent the wrong message about what the society thought. So we got rid of that as an option. Now they have to give punitive discharge. Eliminate the authority to overturn verdicts. After my case, my proudest moments is getting that law change, which happened in 4 months. Congress never moves that fast. And getting the general to do it. Criminalizing revenge porn. It took forever to get this. We talked to Dr. Talk, wouldn't listen to us. This was an issue. And then 2 years ago, the scandal broke. It's called Marines United, in which these Marines would share thousands, tens of thousands of pictures without the consent of other Marines, saying horrible things about find her, rape her, she deserves it. That finally got people saying nothing to do. And criminalizing domestic violence. Up until this year, there was no specific offense of domestic violence. And so that sent the wrong message. So somebody could have horrific child abuse or spousal abuse, and it would only come out as an assault case, which is that's all the conviction would say. So the main thing that we are pushing for is to get rid of all that mess where every one of those steps is where error can occur. Every one of those steps is where bias occurs. You get rid of all that mess I showed you in that comparison of civilian and the military system. We very much strongly believe that prosecutors such as myself should make prosecution decisions. Right now, the prosecution decisions for our felony level courts, general court martials, are made by about 140 2, 3, and 4-star generals in office. That's out of 14,000 some commanders. Those people don't know what they're doing. They might be perfectly good at whatever their job is, flying flags. I hate to say that they have command ships because they've had the problems. But they might be perfectly good, but they're not prosecutors. American Bar Association standard for prosecutors. The prosecution decision should be made by, no surprise, attorneys subject to ethics requirements and continuous legal education requirements. It just makes the most sense. Where prosecutors should make prosecution decision. Under the current process, not only do those commanders make the final decision whether or not to prosecute. If you need to add charges, which often happens as you get closer to trial, uncover additional crimes, you have to go back to that commander and get their permission. And they'll often say no, because, I don't want to mess with this. If you need to take the charge away, dismiss a charge, which you have an ethical requirement to do as a prosecutor, the evidence is insufficient, you have to get their permission to do it. And again, the same thing, yeah, we come this way. I've heard that many times. Yeah, we come this way, let's just see what happens. If you want to enter into a pre-trial agreement, plea bargain, you have to get their permission. They're the ones who decide what a case is worth, not you as a prosecutor. Again, they be great pilots, really good at doing this, with the choice fit, doesn't mean they know what a case is worth. If you want to appeal the decision of a trial judge, so let's say a trial judge suppresses a confession, the case is just been destroyed. You know the judge made a mistake. You want to appeal it. Civilian world, U.S. attorney is going to appeal it. You have to get the convenience board's permission to do that. All kinds of things that they control. And so I think that if one devalues what I went through, why I went to law school for 3 years, why I put all the time and effort to be good at sexual assault prosecutor. 2, it sends the wrong message to survivors that their case is more important as a military good order discipline issue than the crime against them. So I am 100%, the military will push back constantly. Commanders have to have this authority because they control everything. I am convinced that your daughter has been raped, if your son has been murdered, if your business has been burned and arson by a military, you do not have a damn about that commander's good order and discipline. What you care about is justice for your victim, for your son, your daughter, husband, wife, father, mother. That is what you care about. And the military needs to wake up, open their eyes, and understand that in 2019, We do not need the justice system that came from King George III. And it is time to professionalize our process. So that's what we should.
I'm not sure why we don't have a picture.
My name is BriGette. I was in Army. I really felt that serving the country and having an opportunity to travel was going to be a good opportunity. When you're in service, the structure is set pretty strong. If there are any difficulties, you have someone within your chain of command that you can go to who has either the resources that you need directly or somebody that they can direct you to. When you get out, not only do you lose that level of structure, but then you also lose that level of resources. I didn't have any family, I didn't have any friends. It was basically just starting from scratch. By that point, I had a small child who had a very severe illness. So it was just trying to, navigate through all of the different systems and work and transition out. So it was tough. It got bad pretty quickly, and there were periods of time when, I would recoup, but then it would still be that transition where I would, have some difficulty. I've been classified as chronically homeless. Right now I have housing, post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, all of those things were there, taking the skills that I had and applying them to jobs in the community. That was difficult because here I came from, military, and then trying to say, well, here are my skills and this is what I can do. And people were like, well, how do we fit those skills into this situation? I ended up in the VA out of severe distress again. At that point, I was married, and we had insurance, but my medical care had started to just basically eat up all of our money. It just became too much, and so I figured, maybe I could go to the VA and at least get my prescription. Once my health began to deteriorate, my marriage deteriorated as well, and I basically ended up homeless again. I found about the Hood Bash program through one of the social workers at the VA. They really worked with me to get me some type of financial resources, give me the kind of care that I needed for my daughter. These are outside resources, but they plugged me into the information so that we could get stabilized. The VA has the supportive part where they come in and have the social workers come in and help you get the resources that you need so that you can keep your housing. I think initially, I was pissed off, because here I was all these years, short of going to a witch doctor. I had pretty much done it. I was like, what is wrong with me? I'm not connecting, I'm not understanding what's happening, why I feel this way, why I'm struggling, why is this so difficult? Why is going to work every day difficult? So I was trying to still take, ownership of it. That it's something I wasn't doing, it's something I needed to do. And so they kept saying, this isn't your fault. These are the things that happened, and these are all the events that took place. So now, you have to just get some help and come in, talk to somebody, or whatever. Your quality of life doesn't get better until you begin to implement things to make your quality of life better. I'm currently using vocational rehab through the VA. I'm on the independent living program. And I know this sounds funny, but my conditions are so severe right now, I'm not in a position to go back to school or to be working at all. So, what they're trying to do is get me to a point where physically I'm, able to do more and getting out more. If I can just reach one person and say, hey, don't take your life, go get services, go talk to someone, reach out. Because everybody's not always going to be able to reach to you, but just reach out and just start asking questions. The help is there. It may be a little bit challenging to get the help, but take the energy that you were going to take to do something negative, to do something positive for your life.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
I am BriGette McCoy. I'm the lady that you saw on that video. Yeah, that's me. I'm on for real. That was 2010. I had, as I said in that video, been divorced for not more than a year or so. In a program for housing for veterans, homeless housing for veterans, and was going to the VA for everything. My job at that time was getting up, going to the VA for a myriad of different reasons, whether it was for post-traumatic stress I was experiencing, whether it was for resources, getting connected to other medical treatments, finding out about other medical conditions that I had not been diagnosed yet. I literally, and my friends joke at that time, they said, oh, you're going to your job. And I said, well, if that's how you want to think about it, then that's what we're going to do today, because I'm going to go to my job and get taken care of. One of the things that is interesting to me, because I watch that often, as a survivor of sexual assault, as a woman who experiences suicidal ideations even now, it is important to me to give myself hope, to look at where I was and see where I am, and then have hope for the future. A lot of the suicidal ideation, suicides that happen with specifically women veterans is because they lack the hope. They can't see where they are now, how far they've come from the past, and they don't have a way of visualizing what can happen for them in the future. If you paid attention to, the reason why I use this one is because there's a bunch of them on there. They make the connection. If you get interested, you can actually go to maketheconnection.com. There are a myriad of videos of various veterans from various eras of service telling you their first-person narrative. It is utterly important as citizens of the United States to listen to the narratives of men and women who serve. Not what the reporter said about what they said, not what some ghostwriter said about what they said, but hear what they say from their own mouths. And if you don't know a veteran, that's okay. There's videos like that. You can reach out to organizations like mine. We do this type of thing all the time. So that's all the fussing I'm going to do for now. That's it. So if you listened very closely to both my bio, because y'all are in school, right? So you listen to the bio, that artifact, and you listen to the video, that artifact, and if you compare it and contrast them, one said, I was not well enough to go to school. Now, I am in a place of recovery that I can attend classes. I work 3 days a week, and I have classes online. And so there is a process that happens with recovery, and I know that most times when people use that term, they're talking about drug and alcohol addiction or some type of addictive behavior. But the military, if you go into the Department of Defense's terms that they use, military lingo, there's about 138 times that they use the term recovery. It's amazing to me that nobody thought, instead of transition, to use recovery. I don't, I'm not fussing at anybody about that, but it just amazes me that linguistically no one decided to take that language from the military and say, let's use that when you shift out of the military and go back into the civilian sector. So I'm in school, instructional design. I'm deeply intrigued by behavior. I'm deeply intrigued by instruction. I'm deeply intrigued by technology. As you saw, I cradled my laptop as I came in. I had my phone. It's very close to me. If you see pictures of me in different places, I have it in my hand. To me, as a disabled woman, technology created a space for me where other people were continually putting their hand up and saying, no, you can't come here. When I started Women Veteran Social Justice Network in 2008, as a woman over 30, I joined Facebook, created a Facebook page, and reached out to my gamer friends, who were all women, online, playing Sorority House or Sorority Life and Farmville. And I reached out to them and said, I know some of you are veterans. Would you join this group? And they did. And that group, which was a private secret group that started off with about 8 or 10 people, materialized to this group of about 100 people. And it was a lot to manage because we were helping each other. When people say that social media or technology is bad, there are always other opportunities to see that they can be used for good. We used it for good. A lot of the conversation that Don was giving about all of the legislation and all of the movement and all of these things, a lot of the grassroots activism that happened during those some of those periods of time from 2010 to 2015 or 16, we were online connecting each other to the resources, telling each other to go to our political representatives and respond, and telling them to call them and let them know you don't agree with it. We were activated, disabled victims of sexual assault. And so why I smiled when I said that is because when I went out into the community and said, hey, I want to start an organization to support women of all eras, of all backgrounds, of all service times, including those who have experienced sexual assault and homelessness, people said, don't do that. It's never going to work. So let that sink in. Because I'm sure that some of you have been told, don't do that. It's never going to work. But if you have the vision, if you have the passion, but you also have to have the stick-to-itiveness. Because you can have all the vision and the passion that you want to, but if you don't get up every day and do it in spite of what everyone says, it will not happen. Sexual assault in the military, for me, actually, although it was a bad thing, it actually put me right back on track. See, when I left Los Angeles, California, San Pedro High School, to go in the military, I wanted to be an entertainer. I wanted to have a mic. I wanted to get pretty. I wanted to sing and dance. I wanted to do anything that had to do with entertainment. I went into the military thinking, I'll get to travel. I'll get to see the world, I'll get money for college, and I'll get to meet new people and have new experiences. All of those things happened, even up to and including sexual harassment and sexual assault. I spent 3 years in the military. I love the military. I'm a 4th generation veteran. When I hear the boots hit the ground when people are doing drill and ceremony and they're marching, something in me just wells up like, I need to be out there. Oh my God, I wish I was out there. But I don't march. I got on these wedges today, but I don't do any marching. I don't do any of that type of stuff anymore because my physical abilities are limited because of the injuries that happened to me in the military. Not to go into too much detail, I had 3 separate incidences that happened. One took place in my dorm room. I woke to someone in my room after I had went to sleep. Another took place by a trusted advisor who took me off base in a ruse of celebratory for my birthday. We're gonna go and celebrate your birthday. And took me off base. I was in a country I had never been to. I hadn't been there not even 90 days, so I didn't know anyone. And after he assaulted me, he asked me if I was okay. So now I have to ride back in a car with someone who has me in a country that I don't even know. I don't even know where I am. You think I told him that I wasn't? I went to work on Monday and did my job. And a lot of the numbers of that you heard, all of those numbers, those are people who get up the next day and go back and do their job. So this is something that we need to absolutely change. These professionals in the military remind me of parents who say, Johnny, if you do that again, okay, I'm gonna count. 1, 2, okay, if you do it again, I'm gonna start counting again. Every single time something happens in the military that's big and hits the news, they say, we're gonna do something about it. This is something we gotta change. And then they wait for everyone to get quiet and get tired, and then they stop. And then it happens again, and it happens again. When Paula from Tailhook testified, I was just getting out of the military in 1991. The time that she was testifying, if you all remember Anita Hill? How many of you remember the Anita Hill? Okay. Same time frame. I got out in 1991, April 91, in 2 separate accounts, both one civilian and one military. Do you think that made me want to go out and say, this happened to me? Help me? So we're at a better place now because people are coming forward. Social media, even before Me Too was very big, even before Time's Up is very big, social media definitely played a part in bringing the community out. When I went on Facebook first, the men and women who had experienced sexual assault had rainbows as their pictures. They had kitties as their pictures. They had nicknames like Cold Autumn Breeze and Bark Radnick. And these are very prominent people in my community. But at the time when I came in the community, they didn't have their names up on their pages because they were afraid that if someone knew who they were and where they were, listen to what I'm saying. If someone knew who they were and where they were, that they might still get retaliated against. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't even that smart about it. I didn't even think it through. I put my full name, my picture, hey, this is BriGette, and I just went out there. For me, it didn't, the reality of what I was doing didn't become clear until someone stopped me in a store and said, I know who you are, and I know what you did. And at first, I had to think about it. I was like, did I do anything bad? What I hadn't was that they had seen me on some television show or some program, and they recognized my story because they had Googled and went on, and after that, and then to see me in the store, they were like pretty excited, and then it freaked everybody in the store out because they were like, who is she, who is she? I was like, nobody. And so you gotta know, gotta step back one step. You gotta know that even though you may think that what you're doing in your life is not making an impact to anybody, you may think, oh, I'm just going along my day. You may be positively impacting people in a way that you won't know for another 10 or 15 years. Social media has saved people's lives. How do I know that? Because I've met the people who've come to me and said, I read a post you said on Facebook or whatever, and it stopped me. in my tracks. I was contemplating suicide to the point I had planned. I knew what I was gonna do, I knew when I was gonna do it, and I knew all the pieces. And for whatever reason, I went on social media. You had said whatever. Because at one point I was just posting rainbows and kittens and, you know, have a good day kind of stuff. But for someone, that impacted them enough to stop and consider their life and the importance of their life. For me, I've had many people like that have come into my life and just been there for me. I'm not standing here at this level of wellness because I'm not, you know, 100%. People will say that you can put people together after having PTSD. You can be triggered 10, 15 years after. Like that's what happened to me. It wasn't that I was always having problems and there was always something going on. It was literally, I was doing okay, things were fine, had a great job, I was in corporate America, I was working, making good money, had a house, had a car accident, and then from there, everything went down completely. So it's not that you just it's always going to be there, it's always going to be in your face. For some, it is that way. But for a lot of us, we pick ourselves up, we move forward. We might stumble a little bit. For the girls that wear heels and you get your heel caught, you just kind of do that. It's like, okay, I can make it through. But for some, the challenge of having post-traumatic stress and depression and having to navigate all of these different systems, some of the things that Don talked about, I'm glad I wasn't in the military when I was trying to fight a case. I'm glad I got out. I would not have been able to do that because it was just it was too much. So for some people, it's just too much. In my case, I had the support of others. People came and rallied around me. They said, "I got you, girl. What do we need to do? How can I help you?" In this process, I learned that the community that I thought I was like building, I actually was a part of. And not only was I a part of it, but that I could be a recipient of the things that I was wanting to give out to others. A lot of the veterans create organizations and create programs, and they're just giving. And if you don't follow the veteran community a lot, you won't know that quite a few of our advocates have committed suicide. They've been in the community, worked, done great things, got awards, but struggled because they did not see the community that they built as a community that they were a part of and that they could be a recipient of the same things that they were giving out. That's my perception. That might not be exactly what they experienced, but from how I perceive the world, that's what I see, is that you can't build this big thing and think that you're not part of it. As citizens, again, I'm going to go back to the citizen thing. As citizens, we will tell veterans, thank you for your service. And so I'm just going to ask a question. How many of you have said that? Thank you for your service. Keep your hands up. And so after you thank the veteran for their service, can you think in your head one thing that you did to do something to thank them for their service? Keep your hand up if you did. I'm fine with that. You did?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, can you tell me what that was, just so everyone, if it's okay?
I'm a veteran. My wife is a veteran. My son is active duty. Another son was a Marine and is now out. And we help veterans in our community continuously with food, with money, with rides, with whatever they need, because they are being forgotten.
We are being forgotten, veteran. And thank you.
Well, I can remember one specific case very recently where I went out to eat with the family of one of the students that graduated here, and I met her uncle, who was a veteran, and he was a Vietnam War veteran, and I profusely thanked him for his service, and we went on to talk about my experiences as the daughter of a naval officer who was very, very much embedded in the military. I went to 13 schools before I finished high school. But having seen what happened to veterans coming home from the Vietnam War, we just engaged in a discussion of the pain of that, and how proud I am that at least people are acting differently toward veterans now. So, I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing, but it was just having that conversation seemed important to him because he was an older gentleman, and he came through that nastiness, and I remember it, and it was horrible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. A lot of the veterans who were in Vietnam, Korea, African American during World War II experienced some awful things that should not have happened. But the reason I asked you to raise your hand and asked you to think about that was because I needed to have you to kind of see, what you're saying and then what you're doing, what you're saying and what you're doing. If you're thinking vets for their service, how are we thinking vets for their service? It's not just saying it as much as it is, like, again, voting for the appropriate people, making sure that if someone says, I do great things for veterans, hey, well, what are those great things? Like engaging people beyond just a rhetoric kind of response. So there was a long list of people and organizations that I volunteer with, and you're like, how do you do all that? And it's, again, with this really great group of people who support me. Don is on one of those teams of people who support me in the community. Particular Defenders in 2013 engaged me to step forward to tell my narrative before Congress. And giving you some context, nobody in my family knew. No one other than maybe my doctor knew that something had happened to me in the military. So basically I came out before Congress and everyone. In my estimation, I was just telling my testimony, and that was going to be the end of it. I had been on the Hill. Plenty of things happened on the Hill. Nobody ever knows about it, trust me. This particular time, everybody across the world knew about it, and it propelled me into a different sphere. And the organization basically, stepped in, supported me through that whole process, and said, we're here for whatever, whatever support you need or don't need, we're here. And so as a veteran, being someone who goes and talks and speaks before different organizations and on TV and things like that, some organizations want me to be a part of what they're doing, but they will say, but you can't talk about MST. You can't talk about it. That's not our mission. And unfortunately, that's going to be a conflict because you can't silence me through association. And so this is something else that, as we talk about like how I've been successful, this is something that we need to have a conversation about as it relates to specifically women veterans working in the community, being a part of organizations, and being silenced through various means. It's not just one thing, whether it's their gender identity, whether it's that they are from another country and they're living here and they're trying to work that part out. Whatever that thing is, but that they are experiencing some type of silencing. The post-traumatic stress within the veteran community is a form of silencing. We are not able to go out and say, we're having a bad day. How many people just say, I'm having a bad day, and people want to hear it? Most people want you to say, how's your day? Good. We've got to change how we make ourselves available for the community in general. If you're a clinical, getting a clinical training, if you're getting licensing to do anything mental health-wise, pharmaceuticals help, but learn about some of these alternative therapies. I'm late today because I had to get my acupuncture. That is my drug. I gotta get acupuncture every week. This person that you see, the reason I'm here and able to do the types of things that I do is because I see an acupuncturist, I have a chiropractic doctor, I have an internal medicine doctor, and none of these are part of the VA. not crapping on the VA. These are outside the VA that I pay for out of my pocket. And so when people say we want vets to be healthy, we want to be whole, doing all these things, it's like, it's gonna cost money. It's gonna take a lot of time. Spending 10 to 15 hours a month of my time in wellness is part of how I'm able to even be standing here and having these types of conversations. It's the only way. Because even though makeup does a great job, nice clothes do a great job, a great speech does a great job, the inner part has to be whole. If we want veterans to be whole, we've got to be able to create ways to bridge the gap, whether that's through research. Some of y'all are going to be doing great research. You know, take the time to find out about cannabis. Take the time to find out about acupuncture or any of the other modalities that are out there, cymatics, music therapy, and all of those things, because they can help. You asked me what made the biggest difference in my life. I will say between the alternative therapies and the fact of having a good, solid peer support community. Most of those people were online. I had never met them. Some of them I did get to meet because I went to events and they came. Some of them drove 2 or 3 hours just to be able to come and just hug my neck. We're all part of a bigger community. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the news. This group is against this group, that group is against that group, and there's just all of this hate. It's enough of us in this room that we can change that. I know I'm here talking about veterans and all of that, but if you want to thank me for my service, and I appreciate any thanks that you give me, do the right thing, vote appropriately, support each other, break the barriers, talk to somebody who doesn't look like you. These are all the things that help me to be successful, help me to be able to stand here right now and be able to talk to this very diverse group of people. I want to thank you for listening to me. Thank you for your time.
Questions? I have this thing with class and I say, you can't leave till you ask 6 questions. And when they have to be substantive questions, Michael.
I think the question I would have is, what could we do with civilians to help the issue of military assault? You know, I mean, you said like we could vote and we could like inform ourselves, but what else can we do to take that extra step to like make these changes happen?
You want us to sit here?
Actually, yeah, it would be better if you were patient.
Okay, so I forgot to say something. Can y'all hold your phones up? As far as I'm concerned, tweet, text, post, share, Facebook, social media. I'm sure Protect Our Defenders would love to have visibility for being here. So I'm at She Wrote It, He Wrote It _ on Twitter and Protect Our Defenders. All right.
Yeah, and I think it's a great question. I asked that before class. Organize. As we saw at the beginning, very few people actually serve, and fewer and fewer people have relatives who serve. And so it's an issue that a lot of people understand. And so organizing, and what we really need is pressure on congressmen and senators to start doing it. Because right now they don't feel pressure. They feel like as long as they support whatever the generals or admirals say, that's a safe vote. And so they need to start realizing it's not a safe vote. That this needs to become more of an issue in elections. And so getting that message out. One of the things I often have people say, well, what's it like in the civilian? How do all these numbers compare in the civilian world? And one, it's hard to say because there are hundreds of different jurisdictions. And there are some, frankly, as we know, there are civilian jurisdictions that are horrible. The military should not be getting compared to the worst of the civilian world, or the average civilian world should be compared to the best of the civilian world. But the other part of that is for a military survivor, their world is, so if somebody is sexually assaulted, let's say they work at IBM, and they're sexually assaulted at their apartment, by, you know, a boyfriend who doesn't look at IBM. Their life at work will have challenges, but the court-martial or the criminal process will not interfere with work. For a military sexual assault survivor, like I think Moody's here, I don't know how big it is, but I'm guessing the average Air Force pay is 3,000 to 5,000. Maybe it's bigger, maybe it's anyway. So if for those people, if you're a 18, 19, 20-year-old airman who's sexually assaulted, everything in your life is going to be revolving around sexual assault now, because the person who did it, probably somebody in your squadron. You have mutual friends. You go to the same chow hall. You go to the same work area. Everything revolves around. And oh, by the way, when the trial occurs, it occurs right there where you work. And so and you just can't leave. So if you work at IBM and somebody sexually assaults you is also at IBM and you just can't take it anymore, you can say, all right, I'm leaving. You shouldn't have to, but you can say I'm leaving. Or our military members, they just can't say, I'm leaving. So that's a long way of saying it's a really big problem that needs the attention of the American taxpayers.
I'm currently active duty, and I just want to piggyback on what you said. In regards to your question, as a civilian, what can you do for us? From what I understand, a lot of these occurrences happen because of alcohol, or there's alcohol involved. Especially with our young population. And I don't know if you guys hang out with the local base military, or if you have friends, or if you're thinking about maybe you're part of the ROTC here. A lot of times in the civilian world as well, you probably run into this, is have a wingman. In the Air Force is what it's called, but not in the pop culture where it's like, hey, give me this girl, you know, at the bar. Have a wingman. Have somebody who can keep you accountable, especially when you're drinking. Especially females. You have to make sure that you're not by yourself. I know it's stereotypical. We all go to the bathroom together or whatever, but ensure that there's checks and balances in your plan whenever you do go into these social interactions, because I know we painted a really gory picture of a sexual assault situation. It's not always where you're all sober and there's somebody in a power situation who's taking advantage of you. Sometimes it's a peer and we've all been drinking and bad decisions are made, or miscommunication, misunderstandings, or misleadings, and then regrets. And so for you, I guess civilian, if you're in an environment and you see things happening, be bold enough to step in and say, hey, drop the brakes. Trust me. I don't like where this is going. I'm your friend, something like that. Because whether it's another civilian or a military member, you, I think, have a grassroots reach where you can have more effect if you see it at your level.
So, Kim, thank you for that statement. We definitely want to hear from the people serving the country. I think one of the big issues in our environment right now is that we need to know who is an ally and who isn't. You got to use the words, people. Are you an ally? Do you support the movement of protecting people who've been sexually assaulted? If you do not, then that puts you in another bucket. We don't have to have a discussion. We don't have to have anything. So you have to decide. Dictionary is your friend. SAR is your friend. What is an ally? Look it up. Look at some different opportunities. Google is your friend too. Look it up. What is an ally? Become an ally. Just like she was saying, don't just stand by and see something happening. Be the person to say, I'll walk with you to your car and make sure you're okay. I'll make sure you get to your space, wherever you're trying to go. Or, hey, somebody's about, is this your friend? Are you guys together? Okay, cool. Versus just like, well, it's not my problem. Because this is not just, we're here on a campus. I'm on a campus. It's a challenge in both of those spaces. Some of the behaviors that we exhibit on campus are some of the same that are exhibited on the base. That's not my problem. Oh, she's fast anyway. I don't need to, she's always out doing stuff. Again, we are our community. we are the community. We have to begin to behave like that. And in this instance, learn what an ally is. If you're an ally, be cool with it, roll with it, take on your role. If you're not, be cool with it, take on your role. But know on both ends, there are consequences to both. So I just wanted to interject that.
If I could just add on to that, is so sexual assault and rape run, it's a huge continuum of what constitutes that. One of the problems with the prosecutor is that too many people have this view of violent sex assault or violent rape, and that's what their expectation is when they hear somebody from sexual assault and rape. Alcohol can play a factor. Sometimes the military likes to deflect with alcohol. It's like, well, what am I going to do? They're drinking. If you look, so when I talk about those surveys are very thick. When those come out every 2 years, they're like 1,000 pages of information. And one of the things they ask about is alcohol use. And so they ask, so somebody who's indicated they were sexually assaulted, they'll ask, did you have alcohol? Did you consume some amount of alcohol? And they'll also ask, do you believe the perpetrator consumed some amount of alcohol? Unfortunately, what they don't ask is, do you feel like you're intoxicated? Do you feel like you were so intoxicated you didn't consent? Did you have blackouts? They don't ask that question. So, if you look at some amount of alcohol, it's about 10 cases. Now, that doesn't mean third in the drunk, some amount of alcohol. So, but the alcohol glamorization is a problem. We're trying to deglamorize it. But I don't want you to think all rapes and sex assaults are alcohol or all of them are violent. Some of them are controlling, like the drill instructor. And for those who've been to basic, drill instructors can have a lot of control over your life, and they're demanding sex. You're 18 years old, you may not really be in a position to be able to resist that. But I do agree that watching out for each other.
I have a question. So, hey everyone, I'm Daryl, Dean of Students here at college. I know that when we're addressing sexual misconduct on a college campus, we're using the preponderance of evidence standard because it's an administrative process. And so I'm curious what the evidentiary standard that the military uses there. That's the first one. The second one, I saw in your data that you had a high population of men who had said that they had been sexually assaulted survivors. So I also want to know, was it difficult to get men to come forward, since we still live in a society where it appears that only men can be perpetrators and only women can be survivors?
Right. So for the first question, it depends on what we're talking about. We're talking about the criminal process. To convict someone of sex offense, you have to have a pretty reasonable doubt. But because the DOD is also an employer, you can make employment decisions much like the campus would attendance decisions or employment decisions. And that is going to be preponderance of the evidence. So that answers that. The second one, so for the males, the overall rate of sexual assault is about 1 to 2%. For women, it's about overall about 4.4%. But again, 85% of the population is male, so we have more. You typically, till last year, we had more male victims. A lot of the sexual assault, again, you go through the surveys and looking at it, is for men, a lot of it is associated with hazing and initiation. Doesn't make it any less traumatic for the person being sexually assaulted, but it's not necessarily a sexual drive on the part of the person hazing or initiation, but has a sexual connotation to it. It's still legally sexual assault. But there's also others, and we hear from lots of men that reach out to protect their defenders who were getting sexually assaulted. Somebody came in the tent, raped them in the middle of the night, or they wanted to person was being treated in the hospital that the doctor sexually assaulted. So it runs again with sexual assault. But for men coming forward, I think it's very difficult. for a lot of societal reasons. Why couldn't you protect yourself? This must mean you're gay, or you're saying out gay vibes, all those kind of really offensive things that people will say. So the men who actually come forward are pretty small. I did this for 23 years as a defense counsel, prosecutor, as a judge. And during that 23 years, I've only been 2 cases with male came forward.
Colonel Christensen, to those of us trained in the social sciences, you've certainly described a culture in the military that is one of sort of letting these things get swept under the carpet. And having grown up around the military, I have such a mixed feeling. I mean, I certainly believe what you said, but don't they ever stop and think about how incongruent this is with the idea of honor in the military? Because my father taught me values. I didn't want to mess around. I never wanted to disappoint that man because he made it so clear what good values were. And when bad things happened in the military, he talked to me about it. I grew up during the Vietnam War, and I know they set up all those brothels, and they used to, literally the military used to sanction the servicing of their troops by women in these countries. And I kept watching this time because they're not going to do that in the Middle East because the Muslims over there are not going to tolerate things like what used to happen outside of naval bases in Japan and stuff. And it really strikes me as how incongruent this is with the idea of honor that is so much a part of the teachings of the military.
Yeah, well, it is. And so I think it's very complex answer that I'm going to try to give succinctly. Okay, so start out. It is absolutely easy to prosecute people you don't like, right? It is really hard to prosecute someone you like. Most people who join the military are doing it for the right reasons, and most of them are really honorable people. But even honorable people commit crimes, honorable people commit rape, supposedly honorable people commit rape, etc. The problem with the military justice system being command control versus prosecutor control is it starts with knowledge of the accused, of the subject of the investigation. So every accused is known by the commander. That commander is going to have developed either a positive or negative, most likely, opinion of them. And it's usually positive. Is they're usually hardworking, eager to do their job. You know, I need something done. Yes, sir, let me do it. So it's very positive. And so they have this very good feeling about them. And now when somebody, especially when somebody outside the unit or one downtown, says I was sexually assaulted, who are you going to say? Right? Now as a prosecutor, especially as a prosecutor who has done decades of sexual assault prosecutions, I know objectively good people commit bad acts. I don't know Johnny. I don't know what kind of person he is. I only know that this man or woman has come forward and said, this person's done this, I've done an investigation, I've talked to witnesses, and the evidence shows to me that this case should go to trial. There is no inherent bias in it. And so that's one of the problems. The other problem when it comes to culture is because we have this concept of unlawful command and influence. And unlawful command and influence originates from all the abuses historically of the military justice process in which commanders had almost complete control with absolutely nobody stopping from doing what they wanted to do, where they could literally walk into a deliberation room and tell the members, hey, you know, I want this verdict or that verdict, or they could punish people who testified for the accused. All right, so this concept was, well, you can't have a fair justice system where the commander can put his thumb on the scale and get the verdict he wants. So we put all these restrictions on commanders when it comes to the accused. One of those restrictions is what they can say. So when I talked about those Navy cases being thrown out, it was because the CNO of the Navy, Chief of Naval Operations, 4-star that heads up the Navy, said, I've reviewed the evidence, these guys are guilty. Right? So when the head of the Navy says to the rest of the Navy, these guys that you're prosecuting are guilty, it creates issues, and they were thrown out for that reason. So what does that do? So it means that our commanders, and we have a lot of great commanders, hands are tied on what they can say. They can't come out really strongly on any kind of criminal issue, or it creates issues of unlawful command and influence. We've had about 12 sexual assault convictions overthrown in the last 2 years under the guise of unlawful command and influence. So because the command is demanding that they control the prosecution system because they're not suited to be in control of it, it ties their tongues. Our Australian allies have removed prosecution authority from commanders and given it to independent military prosecutors. They can talk strongly. And if you want to hear a commander speak out, just Google Australian commander talks about sexual assault on YouTube. That is how you change culture and the words that guy's using. Because he said something very, very strongly that our commanders can't say. If you do not like the message I'm giving you, get out. We can't say that in the military, that's the problem. So.
And so, if I can piggyback off what he said, and if I heard you right, you're sociology. Okay.
Me?
You
I'm actually in biology, but I am trained in social sciences.
Social sciences. Behavior. These folks don't necessarily come in to be honorable. Some of them have no intention of coming into the service to be honorable. It's a space for them to come and perpetrate crimes. Some of them, it is purely that. And so a lot of the work that I focus on are the serial offenders. That's my focus. Because if this is your thing, then you definitely don't need to be in the military. You need to be wearing a different uniform, an orange jumper. That's the only thing you need to be wearing. So, you know, I have listened to the narratives of men and women who tell me of how they were groomed and how things happen. And if someone comes in and talks to me and starts the conversation, I can finish the sentence for them because I know exactly where to went. Because it's the same behavior. And some people come in and they have no intention of doing anything horrible like that, but they see others getting away with it. And they say, well, I have deviant tendencies, but I wouldn't do it because I'm afraid of getting in trouble. But it doesn't look like anybody's getting in trouble for this. So I think some of it is much deeper. At one point, and Don can maybe speak about this, at one point the military was taking people and giving them waivers who had sexual deviant behavior and been in the criminal system, and they were taking them in the military. So I mean, hey, some of this is not just people going in and wanting to serve honorably.
I got one more thing on the culture. Okay, maybe think about prostitution. So when that was going on, the military was no more than 2% women. It's going the right direction, 15, maybe up to 16% now. The problem is there are too many in the military who still see women as basically a prostitute. And until leadership sets the very strong tone that the women who serve are just as valuable as bringing the fight to the enemy as the men who serve, we will still have that problem. And how do you do that? One, when you have senior officers who engage in unprofessional relationships with junior members of the military, those senior officers need to be crushed. Because they send a message to everybody below, that is the value of that woman. They need to be crushed, and they never are. And two, you can't have people like General Mattis, when he was the Secretary of the Defense, when he was asked about how the integration for women in the combat arms is coming. General Mattis is revered as a god among the Marines. You cannot have him say, well, the jury's still out on that. Because what he did was say to every one of those bastards in the Marine Corps, not everybody's a bastard in the Marine Corps, I'm talking about the bastards in the Marine Corps. Do not think women belong there. I'm with you. And that came from the person they used, the God. And so as long as senior leadership says things like that, the culture is not going to be better.
got time for one more question?
Does it matter that the commander-in-chief is a rapist?
Oh.
I will say, without being too political, I don't believe any commander-in-chief we've had has had much. Certain things that Trump has said, though, has fed into those in the military who don't know anything. And there are a lot. Air Force, I think your Air Force is. Air Force is much better. My service is much, much better. The Marines are better. Not the Marines are bad because they have the fewest women. They're like 7.9%. Air Force is like 24%. They're just more macho. But when they say, like when Trump tweets out, 26,000 rapes in the military, what do these geniuses expect that they couldn't have anything that together? Okay, bad things. When he gets involved in the whole Bergdahl case, really bad. When he gets involved in the Navy SEAL because he thinks he's a great guy and thinks he needs to be released from pre-trial confinement, even though that's what we do with people who are in murder trial, that's bad. So what he has done is there. But I don't think it is rape.
One more quick one, if I may. Is there a difference between the rape that goes on in the service, numerically, in the service academies versus, say, in the field?
Yes, service academies are much, much higher. So the prevalence rate for women in the active duty force is 4.3%. The prevalence rate for the service academy is 16%. 4 times as bad.
Wow. Well, you said that they presented what'd you say, a gory picture? That didn't even scratch the surface. I mean, after being so immersed in it, I feel like this is just my class here, they can tell you it's just so, it's so much worse than what we've heard now. I mean, the way the lives have been affected by this. So, and they weren't even able to scratch the surface of what's being done. The Military Justice Improvement Act, I was hoping that we would get to, because that's at the heart of the solution. And we all want a solution, and there are basically kind of two sides to that. Or there's Congress is looking for people who are lobbying Congress are proposing solutions that are almost at odds. And so we didn't get into that tonight. But anyway, the Protect Our Defenders website is a wonderful resource for finding practically any of the questions that have been asked, and anything you can think to ask is there. And then BriGette has the
Facebook. It's better to go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/4WBSJ. That's where all kinds of information, resources, mental health, retreats, anything that you can share out to your community. Because you don't know, the lady who's baking bread at Kroger or whatever could be a veteran, and wow, I got this great resource for you. So check in on there.
Okay, thank you very much for coming out.
If you are a student and need to get